Cyber Community Q&A. Yeah, 37 is a pretty big number.
Okay.
Yeah.
I said 36.
That's fine. Maybe
3 years
36?
plus.
Is it 36?
Wow.
No.
I thought last time was
We've been
36.
Last month
busy on
was
last
okay,
time.
good.
Being
Wow.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So we're moving.
Well, that's fine. Either way, somewhere in there. We'll do a round of quick introductions because we've got some new faces today. And then I'm going to hand it over to Nandini to do maybe 2 minutes of announcements, and then we'll start fielding questions.
Nice.
Diane, you want to kick us off? Quick introduction,
Yeah.
just give us your name and what you work on.
Yeah, I'm Diane Hadley, and I'm a dev on our networking team, so I work mostly on our gateway features.
I'm Sarvan. I'm a PM on the team working on monitoring and diagnostics.
I'm Nandini, a PM on the Service Fabric, and I work on the SFRP service.
And I'm Mark Robinson. You guys know me well. I'm currently on the Azure CXP team, but I own Azure Advisors and the Service Fabric group.
I'm Deep. You also know me, but not as well as you know him. I'm a PM working primarily on Mesh, Atlas, ACI.
I'm Peter. I'm a PM on the team. I work mainly on supportability.
I'm Jeff, one of the devs. I work on our CLI tooling and some of our UI dashboards.
So I guess fun part today is we actually have some engineers with us
Yeah.
today. It's usually
Yeah.
just PMs that show up, but really excited to have them. Anyway, Nandini, do you want to give us some updates?
Yeah, so I have really exciting announcements. First of all, I want to start off with the new blog forum where we're going to announce all the announcements and release announcements will starting 6.5, the latest CU2 refresh release for 6.5. I think I'm going to share my screen here for just 2 minutes because this is very important. Like, I just want to educate everybody on all the different public announcement channels that we keep informing the customers about the releases. So the first one is like starting 6.5. This is a public docs page. We have created a release notes page, and this has been updated since 6.5. And we keep updating it about all the refresh releases or CU2 releases, and it links to the blog and also links to the release notes and GitHub. And since 6.5, we have started posting the release notes in GitHub as well. This will take you to the GitHub link. We are also working on adapting the markup language. Hopefully, by end of this year, we'll get to that state. And the other forum is like Azure Updates. This is another place where we announce about cool features like MI, which went public review this release, and the application service deployment, which became GA as part of this release. So anything that is like very important key features that we announce, we make sure we post it separately. So you can see that there are 3 announcements. One talks about the release, and then the other 2 talks about specifically the features, the key features that customers are looking forward to. And then, so this is the new forum where you can start looking for all updates. The old blogs, thanks to Deep, he's migrated all the, it was not an easy job, but yeah, thanks to him and all the rest of the team, helping migrating from MSDN to this new place. I think we believe we've also tweeted about this. So Twitter is another place where you can look for updates. Again, thanks to Deep and Peter.
I'll share our Twitter handle just to make sure everyone has that as well.
Yeah, I think it's here.
Should be able to guess it.
Yeah, it's Service Fabric, right?
Yeah.
Service Fabric is the handle,
Yes.
yeah. So that's all great. So the next thing is like this is just 6.5. I just want to wrap up my talk with the key announcement that we made in 6.5 second refresh release or CU2. We're still figuring out lack of better word, but so the key announcement is the public preview of managed identity, which helps you support user and system assigned identities for your applications. This will allow you to access your Azure resources from your application. And there's a detailed, like comprehensive documents we have added, and this is public preview. So there are certain scenarios which you're still trying to support. So please feel free to explore this public preview feature. Review the documentation, give feedback. Let's work together and help this project go GA by end of this semester. That's the target for GA. And the application resource model, which has been like in preview for a long time, hey, finally we are like GA. Again, there's documentation on that front. And the other important, I want to wrap up with the breaking change announcement, which we called out here. Like we want to recommend not use static ports for your, that is used for application port ranges. For now, we are not blocking your application deployments. We are giving warnings, but starting in Q3 or the future releases, the application deployments will be blocked. So that's the reason we call it as a breaking change announcement, and there's documentation about it as well. That's it.
Nice. Can you add each of those new links into the chat window?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll do that.
That would be great.
Okay, I
Okay,
think with
just-
that we can get started.
Yeah, let's get started. Add your questions into the chat window, and we'll do our best to answer them all real time. If we can't answer them real time, we'll get back to you as we do normally. Let's see. I think the first one is from Whit. Whit, if I may, it'd be great if you had a link to the web platform install on the new release notes page. Oh, okay.
Yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense. That's fair.
Yeah. That's great feedback, Whit. What are we gonna do about it?
Nandini, we're gonna add the WPI link on the release notes.
If you've
Not
got
on
it,
the
you
release
just-
notes, on the page.
On the page
On the
where
page.
the
Where we
release
linked to the release
Sorry,
notes.
sorry, I missed it.
the blog post basically.
Not
Yeah.
the blog post, the service fabric page.
Oh, in our docs.
In the Azure
No,
DevOps.
this
the
is
docs?
actually, it's very good feedback.
So then we just have a forward link at all times, and we just keep updating. it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'll-
we just
I'll-
keep updating the one PI
Okay.
destination.
Nice.
And then,
Yeah, I
Back
think
to-
that.
If you could
Sorry, I
even
think he's trying to
move
say
the-
something.
If you could even move the release notes, I guess the PDF, don't use PDF. You can't click any of the links in it.
Yeah, so I know, sorry for the inconvenience. So that's why like, I know that this is going to come up. So that's why I already gave a statement saying by end of this semester, this year, my goal is to convert it to a markup language. So for now, please download it and the link should work. So anyway, thanks for your suggestion and feedback. Yeah, we will. I'll do my best to convert to markup as soon as possible, but like the goal is hopefully by this, hopefully the next feature, the major feature. Yeah.
Great, thanks.
Marcin, what's missing?
I think there's one more question from Whit.
Yeah, care to share more thoughts about the reliable workflows that we hinted at last call? Pull request appears to have passed reviews but hasn't been merged yet. Any ETA on that? Ooh. This is a durable task framework stuff, right?
Yes.
So I think who's reviewing it from our side?
Just taking a look at this pull request.
This particular pull request was in the feedback on the, I guess, the Yammer feed last month.
Yeah, I think so. Fussell is the person who's following up on this, but Mark is currently on holiday for another week. So I would say at the earliest 2 weeks, since he needs to come back from that and then follow up on it. But yeah, it looks like it's pretty close to being done.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, Whit, I don't actually have a good day for you. What we can do is you can send me an email. I can kick off an email thread where you can get some more info on this. I don't think any of us know specifically if there is a date, but I know that it was being prioritized by that team, so hopefully it happens soon. It also looks like at this point, at least when I'm looking at the reviews pending, they're all people on the actual durable task framework team, not on our team. So if those guys are able to get done with it in time, then it should be made available. I think from our side, it looks like it should be working. But anyway, if you want a date, send me an email. At the very least, I can get you in touch with those people, and you can follow up with them.
Right, thank you.
All right, thanks, Whit. From Michael, this is on the 6.5 second refresh post. We have Service Fabric runtime for Ubuntu. Any official support for Red Hat?
Yes, great question. Do you want to talk about it?
Red Hat, I think we have not made any improvements since 6.1. So I unfortunately do not have any updates at this point about the continued support for Red Hat. We're focusing on adding support for Ubuntu 18.04 at this point as a high priority. Hopefully I'll have a better answer next time.
Okay. That's an answer.
Yeah.
We'll have
Yeah.
a better one next time.
No, better like if we are going to,
Yeah,
if I
yeah.
can say those words right now.
Yeah, sure. Okay. What's next? Okay, I didn't even read through this, so I'll just read it verbatim from TJ. It says, there's a cert common name required to effect a rollover to the later expiring cert, or does the add as Service Fabric cluster certificate command that actually update the cluster configuration to use a later thumbprint?
Yes, it is. So if you want to automate it rollover, then you need to be using a combination of common name and issuer thumbprint. Using just the cluster commandlet, then so you can go about this in two ways. Either you provide the certificate thumbprint, or you provide the combination of the common name and the issuer thumbprint. If you do the latter, the benefit is basically you can keep rolling over the certificate, which means the certificate thumbprint will change, but the security of the cluster with that particular cert will still be kept intact as long as you don't change the common name for the certificate, or you decide you need to use a different certificate. If you choose to secure the cluster with a specific certificate by providing its thumbprint, then when that cert expires and you renew it, you're going to get a new thumbprint. So then you actually need to go and update the configuration of the cluster with a new thumbprint. In that case, you run into a couple of issues with regards to cert rollover, because you got to make sure you do it in a point in time where there's no gap where all of a sudden you don't have access to the cluster anymore. We've actually seen a lot of people hit this because a lot of people go into the situation being confident about being able to manage their certificate thumbprint and not adding a secondary one or a backup cert, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh crap, like incident, can't access my cluster anymore. And the funny part is neither can we, because your cluster's it's just secured and it's been locked down. So I would highly suggest TJ that if you can, please use the common name plus the issuer thumbprint. It's going to make things a lot easier for you long term. And yeah.
No, so a great follow-on to just what you said, Deep, is there a way to actually verify that it's using the secondary certificate?
That's interesting. Do you know there's a way to verify? Like, we definitely do that, because what we do is we take the node list and we take the one with the longest expiration. That's built into our logic. But how do we prove that to them?
I don't know if there is a way, I suppose. It'd be a question for Dragos.
Yeah.
As far as I'm aware, we don't necessarily expose. I know most times when we see it, we're looking through traces to see which one is actually getting used at a given moment.
Okay, so if he wants proof, then maybe we get him in touch with Dragos.
Yeah.
Peter, you want to volunteer your email down there and
Okay, yeah, we'll follow up with Dragos on that.
as the person who's doing some of the security stuff on our end.
Nice.
Nothing you're gonna follow.
Yeah, I'll follow
Yeah,
up.
Anthony.
Sounds
Okay,
good.
follow
Yeah,
it. Okay.
Yeah, follow up with Anthony.
That sounds good.
So I think I have my email there. Yeah.
You do?
Sorry, who?
Oh yeah, I think there it is.
TJ.
Yeah, so TJ just,
Yeah, I think TJ. Yeah, I put my email there. Please, if you can shoot an email, like I can help you, or Dragos can help you.
Yeah, well, you get your attention to Dragos. So yeah.
Yeah.
YAML JSON for app manifest instead of XML. This is a fun one. So for now, if you look at the service fabric services notion of an application and coming to the service fabric perspective, we're still dealing with XML at this point. I think where we investigated more and invested as well more for YAML and JSON was when we were working with like the serverless side of things. So mesh and the evolution of that. I think at some point we're going to have to figure out like how we can provide either both approaches into like the serverless future, or we figure out support for the YAML and JSON back onto clusters, which actually does exist right now. I don't think we've like officially shipped it, but you can actually deploy a mesh application to a service fabric cluster, which then theoretically means as long as you're deploying everything in containers, which I'm assuming you're not, otherwise you wouldn't be asking this question. But if you were deploying everything in containers, you'd be able to use this mesh app model with JSON and deploy things to a service fabric cluster. But I'm going to assume that because you asked XML, you're probably not using containers, you're probably using service fabric services. At which point, like we've thought about this, we have it somewhere in our backlog, but it's not like an immediate priority. If this is something you absolutely need, like please reach out. Literally, Nandini or me, any of the emails that you've seen here, and we can help learn a little bit more about your scenario, give you a potential recommendation, and then take that feedback for how we're prioritizing the work.
Don't we also support applications and services in the JSON, like in the ARM template now?
Yeah, absolutely. But in order to do that, you need to package the app, and then packaging the app then requires having an app manifest and service manifest. Yeah. So either way, there's a configuration XML that exists. But that's a really good point. Andre, basically what Sven was pointing out is we now have G8 support for apps and services as ARM resources, which then means if you decide to package something with the XML, you can actually keep it as a Service Fabric application package that gets compressed and is available somewhere to your cluster. And then you can actually use ARM as a way to reference that particular code path and the application package and get it deployed to your cluster. So in that way, you are dealing with JSON when it comes to deploying your application, but there's still XML involved somewhere. But at least for the deployment perspective, I guess you're going to use JSON. Okay.
All right.
Is there another question from Wade, I think?
Yep.
Yes.
When modifying the data path to point to an attached managed data disk, is it safe to increase that disk size arbitrarily, for example, through an ARM update, without impacting the state of the cluster? If not, how much you suggest handling a migration to a larger disk storage?
So this is definitely not going to be a safe operation to just arbitrarily change the disk that you're using on your VM scale set. So what you're actually going to want to do is create a new VM scale set with a larger disk, and then disable the existing scale set and let the services in the state migrate over to the new scale set before you switch over. Because if you're just doing it in place, there's a high chance you're going to lose the state already on your cluster. And we haven't done all that much testing with scaling up the managed disk at this point. So it's just going to be a risky operation for sure. And then does SF support large VM scale sets greater than 100? No, not at this point. 100 is the maximum.
Yeah, you want to go into a little detail why? Tell them something fun about the Fabric controller SAM consistency.
Oh, well, it sounds like you want to do so.
No, I think it's pretty fun. So the reason we can't actually go up above 100 is that when you cross 100 nodes, we don't have guarantee that the FD mapping for the first 100 is equivalent for the second. So your 101st node may come in and claim that it's on fault domain 0, but the fault domain 0 for the 101st node it might be fault domain 4 in terms of the physical mapping for any VM 0 to 99 or I guess 1 to 100. So as a result, we don't allow you to exceed VM scale set beyond 100 because then our notion of a fault domain no longer applies because there's no consistency of fault domain to physical infrastructure. And so in order to provide true resiliency, you do have to map fault domain to physical infrastructure. And since we can't do that, we max you out at 100. You could theoretically achieve node types that have more than 100 nodes by squeezing multiple scale sets into a node type. That's complex and not necessarily recommended.
Definitely would not recommend it.
Yeah, Peter would not recommend it.
We've seen a lot of issues when people try and do that. So
yeah.
Would not recommend
So
it.
if there's any reason you want to go above 100 for the same scale set or node type, don't do it. There's good reasons not to, and there's easy ways to keep them as separate node types and still have a similar ability to pool applications across them. So hopefully that isn't an issue.
Oh, great example as to why we have these calls.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
To that end, then you may want to modify the template on the portal to disable that option, because I seem to remember I think that question came from actually creating a test template in the portal, and you specify here I want to make a new VM scale set, and I'm pretty sure that's an option on there.
Okay, so it lets you create a VM scale set with greater than 100 nodes.
I don't think that's possible.
Yeah, there's like a checkbox somewhere. Do you want to make a large VM scale set or not?
It's definitely possible. It might be enabling multiple placement groups.
You think so?
Which the VMSS team has been encouraging lately.
Oh.
So yeah, that's a good feedback to have. We'll follow up with the portal team then.
Yeah, Peter. Good call.
Yeah.
Okay, we should make sure that does the job. Thank you. Good call.
Thanks.
Okay, question from Kyle. Chaco mentions at the end of this video chat to basically reach out to get plugged into Service Fabric Mesh Refresh Atlas. Who do we reach out to? This guy. My email is pasted above. It's deep.kapoor@microsoft.com. Please reach out to me. Kyle, I am the person you want to talk to, whether or not you'd like to. Okay.
If it's the direct evolution of Mesh, then reach out to me as well. Because I'm.
That's it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
let's
sure.
do that.
Sure. That's
I'm
fine.
gonna-
It says
actually-
Atlas works, so that's why. It should
I'm
be-
gonna pull both of you to a thread. I got a thread going with someone else about mesh.
Sounds good. Are there any documented constraints on the Service Fabric application names or type names? Do we actually have constraints? There might be something on length. Do you know?
There
Jeff?
is a
The length.
length.
There's light, but I thought there were some characters you aren't
Okay.
allowed to use.
Do you know?
I don't know them off the top of my head.
I don't know them off the top of my head either.
But I remember issues trying to figure out what can I actually encode in SFX. Because we let you do stuff like slashes, stuff like that. But I think at one point we weren't letting like tildes.
Do we have this documented anywhere?
I think I'm trying to look for documentation. If I find, I'll put it. Otherwise, we'll have to use a point person. It's a question about the length of the name?
No,
or like
any
the
constraints.
word?
What are-
Any
Constraints,
restrictions? Okay.
Definitely
if-
not. from the-
If I'm accepting user feedback, how do I ensure that it's not going to just bounce back with some weird error about the name?
Okay, restrictions are.
Who would know? Like in the meeting answer.
Should we
Yeah,
move?
but-
Probably
Yeah.
him.
Yeah, but that's fine. So what we could
Yeah,
do is,
that's good.
I think it's a good feedback for like things that we could follow up on documentation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Peter, Jeff, either of you wanna take this
Yeah,
upon the
can I
mantle?
I have to.
Yeah, and thanks for it. We'll get that added to the stuff we should add to the docs. But yeah, restrictions exist. Dan was,
Tilde is like
Yeah, like I know
rendering
when
it.
you are using an ARM template to deploy an
Yeah.
application, you define this, the service name is application name tilde service name.
yeah,
So like that would be a reason why you can't have that
Okay.
in the actual name.
so no tilde, and we know there's a max length, but there's probably some others. We'll
I
follow
think
up on the
there's
documentation.
also other special characters.
Cool.
Can more than one singleton service be deployed on each node? For example, 5 nodes specify 20 instances. Will it put 4 on each?
If it's the same
Each node and
service,
handle service remote routing in a round robin fashion.
if it's the same service and you're just trying to get multiple instances onto the same node, then the answer is no. It's going to tell you that it can't place the amount that you like and go into warning. Today, we limit the total number of service instances of the exact same service and service type to exactly 1 per node within the same partition. This is done because I think initially when we were designing Service Fabric, the philosophy was instead of having multiple processes doing the same thing on one node, dedicate more resources to that process to do all the things at the same time in an async or parallel way. So as a result, the answer is technically no. How you can get around this is you can either introduce partitions to I'm assuming it's a singleton service, so it's a stateful service with a single
In this
replica.
case, stateful. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
stateless.
Sorry, stateless.
Yeah,
So
stateless.
It's
No
a
partitions.
weird concept, but you can actually partition stateless services. So that's one way you could get around this. And then that would make some of the service remoting a little bit easier. The harder way to do this from a networking standpoint, but easier from a management standpoint, would be to add more apps of the same app type or add more services of the same service type. So you can have like 4 services that are of the same service type within the same application that each have 5 instances being requested. So you get 5 times 4. But then the issue is that they'll have different service names. So even though they're the same service type, they'll have different service names, which then means you now need to add some logic for how service to service communication is happening to balance out across the different instances.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
Yes. Okay.
Okay, cool.
thanks for it.
I guess, is there anything in the backlog to potentially make that easier?
So sort of, Matt, who's typically with us, not here at the moment, he's following up on that specifically because even though we were initially hesitant to support it, we have seen a lot of people ask for it. So I think there's some investigation happening on what it would require to pull that off. And so what we can do is probably follow up next time with where we're at with that.
Great.
Okay, we got a good one here from Peter. They recently ran into an issue where they wanted to add a node to their Service Fabric cluster hosted on Azure, but the node SKU for the existing nodes was no longer available. And they were unable to expand the cluster. So they have a support ticket open for that. If you want to share that, your support ticket number,
You can
with
just
us,
email
you can.
one of us. Yeah.
Okay, but aside from that, the specifics of our case, which are being handled by support, what is the overall strategy for Service Fabric node SKUs being deprecated for Service Fabric hosted in Azure?
What do you think, Nandini?
What was the question?
So basically the VM SKU was discontinued and they want to create a new VM using that SKU.
Because it's already in the cluster. That's an interesting case.
That is an interesting.
We don't really deprecate SKUs that much.
It's not a frequent thing.
No,
for
it's
sure.
not. But it's a great point.
We don't recommend that excuse, right? But
No, so they're already using a SKU and now it's deprecated. So you can no longer provision any new. VM
So it's like a
SKU.
D4 V2, right? Because V2s are gone or something, like something like that probably. Where you have to get a D4 V3 now.
Yeah.
And so when you try to add a new node type, it tries to get a D4 V2, and Azure says too bad.
But what do you do on this? And like it's even
Yeah.
if it's certificated.
So I mean, this should be a full-on like cluster migration from one node type to another, where you introduce new ones of a new node. That's absurd, though.
It's not that up.
No, because you gotta go node by node, because now you're replacing primary and C nodes.
So no, you should just add a complete new skill set using.
Yeah, but then
That's
once you
supported.
shut down the old one, or I
It
guess
just
you gotta-
migrates over once you disable the old.
Yeah, but you have to do it node by node.
No, you don't have.
What happens if you lose C nodes?
When you disable the primary node type,
Yeah.
it'll disable in a way which is basically node by node.
Oh, it does?
That will allow you to migrate C nodes
Learn something new.
to a
Okay,
new skill set.
cool. So it does
So
it
in
on-
this case, yeah, you probably want to find a new supported VM SKU, create a new skill set, and migrate over.
Well, you also theoretically don't have to migrate over. You could just continue squatting because they're not gonna kick you off because it's supported.
Yes, but if you would like to have a larger node type,
You just have a second node type of the scale,
yeah, it depends on
the actual cluster. I guess.
the needs of the cluster for sure.
So
Does
What
that,
did you say about squatting? Because they actually ran into an issue. They couldn't expand the cluster. Right?
Yeah,
It's no
yeah.
longer available.
correct, but they can't expand a node type within the cluster because it's no longer available. That doesn't mean they can't open up another node type and use that one for going up and down and not do anything to the existing one. Azure's never gonna take away the machines that they're sitting on right now. They can't because we offered support for them. So
Right.
they're gonna exist forever. So they don't theoretically ever have to shut these down. It's just when they need to scale up, they have to do it on a different SKU. So Peter was just saying introduce a new node type basically.
Okay, so is that strategically how we suggest people to go long term?
I guess.
long
that would
term,
be
I
the-
think that would be our suggestion.
Yeah.
To create a new skill set and move on to that.
I think hopefully this doesn't really happen to people very much. It's part of it because it's not. Yeah, exactly. It has.
It has.
It's not painless.
But
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
warnings that's been given, right? Now it's something that we have to add.
We may want to go check and see how much notification we're giving for shutting down a node SKU. So people are aware of the fact that it might be happening rather than getting caught. Like they shouldn't be getting surprised when they suddenly try to scale out.
Peter, if you're there, can you unmute? Does that help?
Very much, and that lines up with what the support has been telling us. Just curious if you guys had given it thought, and because I think I'm trying to think how old the cluster is, but it's probably it's 2 years, something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Appreciate it.
Thanks. Yeah,
You got it.
cool. Do you guys work closely with Azure DevOps projects to get a portal template with Service Fabric like Kubernetes, like AKS for deployments and for pipelines?
There is one.
Yeah, that's what I
There is
thought.
one.
Yeah. But I don't know if it's as extensive as the AKS one. Because I know AKS has invested like a lot into getting the DevOps thing set up. We did some amount, got like a decent flow going, and have sort of left it at that. James, let me just pull up the doc and see if I can. If nobody has anything to add, we can go on to the next question. I'll see if I can find something and we can retroactively address it.
Yeah, why don't we come back to this one?
Yeah, sounds good.
after.
Did we already end?
The next one should be from Whit.
Yeah, it is.
Is there any work being done on being able to pause services without removing them? On a similar note, what about auto scaling of services? Example, specify a max instance count, but use some metric to have the cluster automatically increase or decrease instance counts.
So I think for the first part of the question, being able to pause services From my knowledge, I don't think we're doing any work on enabling that at this point. On terms of auto scaling of services, as long as you have monitoring on your cluster within your application code, you could scale based on a metric programmatically to increase the instance count. And I guess in that logic, you could specify a maximum instance count. Yeah.
But that would be programmatic scaling. We are doing work on auto scaling as well.
Auto scaling non-programmatically is going to be DMSS scaling then.
What would be the benefits of being able to pause the services without removing them?
Oh,
What would be the benefit of that?
Yeah, I don't know what the scenario is. We'd love to hear.
Yeah,
Wait,
I mean,
you
the second half is kind of rendered moot after the answer to the previous question about having more instances than node types.
I see. Okay. But we are looking at auto scaling service instances too, because we did that for mesh for containers. So I think it would just be like, I think it is on the backlog of stuff that we're going to get to.
To sneak another question in, what about changing the number of partitions?
Automatically?
Yeah.
That I don't think we'd ever do, because that then comes down to how are we going to name that partition for you? Because that could violate a bunch of stuff on your end, right? Because we're expecting you to have thought and deliberately picked a partition naming scheme that works for you and is something that's compliant with the way in which you're going to operate the application longer term. So I think us just deleting and creating partitions willy-nilly is probably not going to fly.
Sure.
Yeah, we just can't do that because we'd have to restart everything. It just doesn't work. But we do, going back to the auto scaling, we do have support for it. I don't know. Like we have.
Yeah, it's just a matter of bringing it to like service instances in a regular service cluster. Like it is something we worked on. So
no, it is service fabric for the cluster. We did this work like late last year.
Correct. Because
so
we
just pull it up. I just pasted the doc. It's there.
Great. I'll give that a read.
Yeah.
Thanks, I didn't realize you had a doc.
Yeah, neither did I.
Let me, for the DevOps question, I'm about to post a bunch of stuff.
Sure. So, Andre, what about Windows Server 2019? Answer is yes, it is supported, and we need to update our document page. So you can go ahead and use that. We don't have it in Portal yet, so you will need to deploy it through an ARM template, but it is supported.
Good. All right, from Michael, any roadmap items for built-in service discovery features like HashiCorp console? Now I just package console as a service fabric app.
Oh.
If you're using Windows clusters, then you should be able to use the service discovery.
Yeah, sure. But I think the question is more about like maybe open source projects that are out there or things that other people are building that we can just easily integrate into like Service Fabric. Because I thought console was specific to Gates, but I'm not sure.
Consoles. Michael, I have a question about console. How are you doing it when apps move around? Do you register with the console app each time an application comes up?
Yes.
I see. And what if and how do the apps talk to the console app itself? Because the console app itself could move around, right?
Right. Yeah. So unfortunately, right now, what I'm doing is I'm either running console as an app on Service Fabric, so it has to re-register with the other nodes every time it comes online, or we run console externally. But the question really, because right now, if we have external connections coming into an SF service or an SF app, we've got to go through a load balancer, as opposed to doing any sort of direct connect and removing that one network hop for latency.
So then why can't you read a notification for a service coming up and forwarding that information to console as well? Selma, do you know if that would work?
No, I think he's looking for native integration, so he doesn't have to actually do anything.
I see. To register stuff. I see. Yeah, I don't think we're investing in that because theoretically, we have our own discovery with our DNS service and reverse proxy built in. So I think, Michael, if you want to use console, you probably have to continue manually updating. But I think this is a pretty good ask. Like, it's something we should probably go think about a little bit more. So
I think
we'll
it's
take that.
kind of already on the table, but I don't know that there's a timeline for
Correct,
it.
yeah. I think it's on the backlog.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, container scenarios, Docker, Azure Docker registry, and so on. I started looking at SFC not long ago, and I can't find a descriptive doc about how to deploy from ACR.
I think like Sudhan replied. No, I thought he
No.
said.
I mean, we should have something for Azure Container Registry to Service Fabric, right?
I think there's like because Sudhan already posted the documentation there.
He did? Okay.
Did you Sudhan?
Yeah, he did. You're right.
This is the document.
That's exactly right. That's exactly the one I was gonna paste. Okay, thank you. Good call. All right, Andre, if you have any further follow-ups beyond that doc, like feel free to paste them. We can get to them. Otherwise, that should be the right place for you to start. Question from Whit: how do you disable a given node type to force service migration, primary or not? I only see a PowerShell command for disabling a given node.
So you will have to go through every node on that node type and disable it using that PowerShell command. We have a bunch of scripts in our best practices. Basically, it's just a for loop. It'll go through each node, run the disable command, but you can't do the entire node type with one command.
Okay.
All right, next question. A few months ago, we had a demonstration on one of these calls by SoCreate showing their pub sub solution. Is that the recommended approach to use for that functionality, or is there anything official in the works for the same? In a similar vein, any official plans to bring RX to Service Fabric?
So what is RX? You know?
No.
Okay.
Reactive extensions.
Reactive extensions. Well, I guess a lack of my knowledge probably means we don't.
Yeah, I don't think we're bringing that.
For the SoCreate stuff, when saying that it's a recommended approach I think it's a good path to achieve that functionality. It's not something that like Microsoft would support per se, but it's something that we thought they did a pretty good job with, which is why we wanted to highlight it. Yep. In terms of like PubSub investing that we're doing on our end, it's certainly on the table. It's not something we've prioritized at the moment. So if you wanted something in the short run, I think going with what they have is actually a pretty good bet. They've done a good job and they've demonstrated that it works well. They've got a couple of customers using it with a good amount of success. So if you do need something like that, then I think going in that direction for now is a perfectly fine way to go about it.
Great.
Cool.
All right. Okay. Peter,
yes.
Peter posted his support case number, but I think we solved it on real time.
You got, yes, we're making more of these.
Which one are you on?
Right above the support case.
Oh.
There'll be more.
Right.
We're on it, yeah. Probably September, October for the most part, though, just as a heads up. But yes. If there's any you'd like to request, let me know. In particular,
I'm curious how like SQL works.
Cool.
And really a list of who all is using it. I mean, I guess it's often said a lot of groups are using Service Fabric internally, but I don't know that there's actually a list anywhere.
So if you look at some of our presentations from any conference, we typically have a slide that shows some of the teams. That slide changes over time because we keep switching in and out certain services. It's also not nearly an exhaustive or comprehensive list of who uses it because that would be very long and it would be a very painful amount of info to put on the slide. But there's a bunch of teams that use it today. We all the way from like the core infrastructure in Azure that actually powers the resource provider. So literally every single resource you request in Azure comes through a resource provider, which is then running as a Service Fabric stateful application somewhere on these protected Service Fabric clusters. So before Azure can even stand up a region or support any request coming in, the first thing that they would do is stand up a Service Fabric cluster. So the dependency goes pretty deep. And then like at the more high levels, like several services, like you mentioned, SQL, Intune, Skype for Business, Microsoft Teams, Event Hubs, Event Grid, Cosmos DB, it's a ridiculous number. I would never be a Stream Analytics happens. I don't know. It goes on.
Sure.
Xbox Live. There you go.
Especially since they're able to show such high performance with their own services, it'd be interesting to see more detail about how they're running off of your solution, so that I might do the same.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. So I think what we'll do is SQL is on my list, Cosmos DB is on my list. So those are two that I'll try to get to next, or as soon as I can to get that info to you. If you're curious, I mean, their use cases are particularly interesting because they've actually made modifications to specifically replication as well as how they're storing stateful data beyond what like Search Fabric does in order to get even more performance and juice. So I'm sure that would be interesting for you to learn.
Absolutely. And service bus too.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thanks for the feedback. All right. Oh, that's the reactive extension that you're talking about. Okay.
How are you going to prioritize those?
That's interesting.
I mean, maybe if others want to see SQL as well, they could.
So part of it is also availability.
They could with. I mean, how are you going to prioritize the next one?
So it's kind of on the availability of the people that I want to record it with, more so than anything else. Some of these guys don't have time sometimes, and so they keep punting me like a little football. So eventually, it'll happen.
All right, but SQL is nice.
Yeah. Sort of. Yeah. Of course.
Okay.
Of course. Everybody's nice.
It's a great playlist, though.
No,
it's a great playlist, though. So thank you for putting that together.
Yeah, I'm trying to make sure that they are, yes.
Okay.
Or at least Cosmos. One of the two, I think we should have at least come out some point. Okay, so this is a link to the reactive extension. We should actually probably look into this. It just seems like a standard .NET package that we may want to see how it integrates with Search Fabric. I think some of these words sound familiar. Link operators. I thought we had support for this. No, we don't. We don't yet. We'll look into it, but thank you for the feedback on the point. All right, cool. In the multi-tenant scenario, for example, if we host services for various customers and Search Fabric clusters, what options are there for micro-segmentation? I mean, in case I want to isolate customers from one another on the same cluster on the network level. So network isolation to support multi-tenancy within the same cluster where they own the cluster.
Within the same cluster? Wait, can you read that question one more time?
Sure. In a multi-tenant scenario, if we host services for various customers on a cluster, what options are there to isolate customers from each other on the same cluster on a network level? So you use isolated networks effectively, which will exist soon.
Yeah. Bring your own VNet. It's not out yet.
Yeah.
But I guess that would be the best option once it is released.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it will exist for regular Search Fabric clusters, right? Like because we were.
Yes, it's something that you can just enable on your Service Fabric cluster. Yeah.
So bring your own VNet. Dario is pinging me saying the same thing. Dario, if you're on the call, you want to unmute and just talk about it?
Yeah, he's on.
We'd love to just hear it from you.
He's on the call.
He says no. Well, now I've recorded you saying that you're refusing to unmute yourself. It's going on YouTube, Dario. We're gonna give you another chance to unmute yourself. I still no. All right, fair enough. Man's probably busy. But do you want to talk about it a little bit?
About
bring your own VNet experience, what it look like?
Well, exactly what you're saying is that it's what's going to allow us to have multi-tenancy because, you can isolate what's on each network. You can connect services running on your Service Fabric cluster to virtual networks that you already have in Azure that you have like storage accounts on. So this would, I guess, be a use case of that if you want to separate those virtual networks. I'm not my team's working on it more than I am. I'm kind of on the gateway side.
Yeah.
So I'm,
Well, so
but
I guess the answer is in the future, yes. This is something we're working towards. So under your question is actually a pretty common one. A lot of the customers that we have that run on Search Fabric have a need to host multi-tenant workloads on top of clusters.
As do we.
Yeah. As do we. And so what ends up happening is today they take two approaches. So one approach is you actually don't segment on a network level, but you use security boundaries and access to secrets as a way of differentiating across workloads. The other is you can just straight up use segmentation of the cluster itself. So either you start introducing boundaries on a physical level, so like different VMs dedicated to hosting workloads for different people, or you just maintain multiple clusters, it's not fun, but it's certainly a path that we've seen people take with success. because these guys are like ISVs that are partnered with Microsoft and they're offering multi-tenant solutions for their customers, consulting companies that want to host workloads for their companies, for their customers on top of a Source Fabric cluster. So this is not at all a unique thing, I would say. It's certainly something that people do. The way they do it today doesn't really give you as much network isolation as I think you're looking for, but that is something we're working towards. And yeah, Diane's team, as you mentioned, other than her, is working on it. I don't know what
I'm
you're
working
doing.
on parts of it too, yeah.
I'm kidding. But yeah, it's something we're looking to deliver as soon as we can. Cool. Does your team actively work with a feedback board, or is it preferred to use GitHub issues? Nandini, where would you like to see feedback? GitHub or the feedback board?
Honestly, I'm hearing about the feedback board just today, but GitHub is where we want to, a source of truth is, so we want to
Yeah, why don't we try and consolidate on GitHub?
Sounds good. Is that fair, Whit? I think it should be.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I just know there's a lot of feedback on here, and at least there was someone in Yammer who was mentioning this as well.
Okay,
we should probably go and
consolidate.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well, Nandini is volunteered to do that now.
You're volunteering publicly.
These are how these things are done.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
All right, so let's slow down. Any more questions? Where are we? Oh, there we go.
Well, and I guess you may want to update that link that I just posted because it mentions this feedback forum as the best place for submitting feature ideas.
There you go.
Yeah, we should definitely do that.
Detective Way on the case. When Mesh goes GA? Great question. So, Sudhanva, do you want to talk a little bit about your timeline for the app model evolution stuff that you're working on? If you're still around.
He's still.
Just muted.
You're muted.
Yeah.
Is he there?
He's there.
He's there.
He might be doing other stuff. All right. Well, I can talk about it a little bit. So basically, Mesh, Andre, there's a video that was linked above from Chaco. It goes a little bit more into detail with what it looks like and what's going to happen with it. The rough TLDR, and I think we also covered this a couple of community Q&A calls ago, so it might be worth checking out. But the TLDR is we split Mesh up into two pieces. We've got an internal sort of infrastructure piece that is being used to host multi-tenant container-based applications at scale for all Azure services that we're calling Atlas. So that platform theoretically is already GA per se. We've got services going on production, great support on it this month. Then there's a second portion of it, which is the mesh that you'd interface with, which is the actual application model by which you can actually deploy things onto that kind of an infrastructure. So that is undergoing like a bunch of changes. We've made a lot of different changes based on feedback that we were getting, as well as in an effort to make it more open source friendly. So Sudhanva, who's on the call, but I think not exactly at this point in time, is the person who's responsible for supporting the new application model. And so I believe they're looking at some kind of a public preview later this year. So GA, I don't think we actually have a date. If we were to, it would probably be sometime next year.
Hey, did I just miss the? My mic was muted. So
yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I was just trying to get you to give us some timelines on the app model evolution thing that we can share with Andre.
Oh yeah, he can. So we're doing a private preview this month and then next month, and doing a public preview announcement around Ignite. If you want to join the private previews, you can reach out to me to try things out. But public preview is going to be later this year, and then GAs we're looking at like Q3 next year, so way into next year.
Cool. And then Nandini, you'll figure out the issues thing, right?
Yes, boss.
Thank you. I've heard the term OSS Friendly. Yes, Sudhanva, you want to talk about it? Is he gone again?
No, I'm here. The OSS Friendly. So in Mesh, we had an app model. So the thing that you deploy to Azure was a Mesh application model or the resource model. This time we took a step a little differently, and the manifests actually are derived from the Kubernetes manifest. They look a lot more Kubernetes friendly. We're also open sourcing the actual specification itself. And we're working with a couple of partners in building that spec up. So it is an open source project that we're collaborating specifically with Alibaba on. And the actual specification, in addition to having support on the managed service, will run on a Kubernetes cluster as well. And that project is going to be open sourced. and also being worked on by multiple partners. So that's kind of what we mean by the OSS friendly. Oh, oops.
All right, you can mute again. You're typing.
Yeah, so then I think
He's just dropping his email. That's fine.
Yeah.
Okay,
Good job.
that's great.
A few months back, there was work being done for looking at the service state within the SF portal. I think that's Service Fabric Explorer there. Any work on that? Oh, we've got the Service Fabric. We've got Mr. Service Fabric Explorer himself with us today.
So when we're saying service state, what exactly are we looking at? Like, right? No.
I could have sworn someone was working like an OData thing. You could
OData
see what was
Explorer
actually being
for
stored.
reliable collections.
So I know at one point there was a intern project
Yeah.
that was centered around that.
Yeah.
I don't actually know who was.
It was open source and it was put on GitHub, but I don't think we did
I
a
don't know if
formal
we actually-
integration with Service Fabric Explorer.
Yeah, no, that'd be something to look into. I thought at one point it was just having APIs exposed for reliable collection. That was the main concern.
Yeah, that was the other thing. That's why we built we went around the path of going through the OData thing, but then in order to pull that off, you have to then go and modify the way in which you use reliable collections to register themselves as like OData types so that the OData Explorer can be used to see them. So one way or another, you either add stuff so that when you expose it, it isn't costly, or you end up exposing reliable collection stuff that could be costly. I think the official support for that in Service Fabric Explorer might take a little bit longer until we figure out a good way to pull that off without exposing like too much information with APIs for reliable collections.
Yeah.
But we do have a bunch of other fun stuff with Service Fabric Explorer, which if I don't see any more questions, Jeff, we'd love to hear some of the things that you've recently done, because I know you did some, and then some of the things you're thinking about.
Yeah, we could, I guess, pull up like one of the CU 2 or 3 releases if we want to look at anything in particular.
I have it. I can.
Oh, yeah, if we want to look at that.
So this is like, I have. Thanks for bringing it up, because this time the release notes, we have a separate section for SFX.
We finally got one added, which is cool. Okay.
I can just like share it, and you can just talk to it if you want.
Yeah. The big push that we're trying to add to SFX is just make it easier to diagnose the cluster. Make it faster either for us or the customer to find information that we're looking for. One of the first things that got added with 6.5.
This is even worse, sorry.
No, that works. Was the image store viewer, which is, I guess, something people wanted for a long time.
Yeah, people wanted that.
To sort of see the metadata state. I think one of the big things around that is we would find people who are like, I'm running out of space, and then find that they've never unprovisioned anything. And this should be a way for them to at least see how much of that space is being taken up, which was a pretty big convenience. And then I know at some point there are plans to add more APIs around image store state, because people can run into issues with those pretty easily. Some of the other big things is we wanted to make it easier to see the upgrade state for like the cluster, which we've added a lot more information around that, so you can actually get an idea of what the state of an upgrade is in a more readable format. And then we also cleaned up application upgrades as well, so you can see more information. Because previously you couldn't actually see like the last cluster upgrade, which was actually really inconvenient. And then a lot of the other stuff has been small utilities to make it more convenient, either to grab data out of SFX, or like we have plans to do more like cluster level warnings. So actually we were talking about certs earlier about people being aware on, hey, my
expiration
cluster cert is about to expire. This is a really big deal. And as of right now, it would be shown as like a health event per node, which is very easy to miss unless you're specifically looking at health events on nodes. So we plan on adding banners or other scenarios that you should be aware of, like if you're running less than 5 seed nodes, which is not a great place to be because you can very easily get yourself into a bad scenario, making it more obvious to customers.
That's coming in the next release.
Yeah.
But this is just the one that we announced. Yeah, CU2. But whatever Jeffrey mentioned, like the warnings on the cert expiration and the less number of seed nodes of production, that's all coming in the next one.
Yeah. The big ones. I know we had screenshots somewhere. I don't know if those are.
I know. I think there's the links. Yeah. It's not here, but the documentation has been.
Yeah. And then I know one thing that people have had issues for a while now was at one point AAD changed some of their stuff, and people could hit many issues trying to access SFX and AD cluster. Hopefully no one has those issues anymore. where you'd either get a white page or silent sign-on request, which I guess many people have ran into. And then one of the other things being accessibility compliance. So if you're using screen readers for any reason, it should actually pick up all the info that is in SFX. That was a bit of a rework. You don't actually see anything visually, but underneath the hood, it's a lot easier for screen readers to pull up data.
Yeah.
Cool.
Nice. All right, Deep, you took care of Andre?
Yeah, I think the answer is just maybe no plans yet really, but if we do, it would still be quite a ways out. We've got like plenty of stuff we need to do on that model first. I think Sudan also just added to no plans to do that. Yeah. Okay.
All right, very good. We got 3 minutes. So it's the lightning round. If you have any last questions that you want to get in for the team, do it now.
So I got a question for you.
Yep.
We put it like a bunch of links in here, some from us, some from other people. The chat obviously doesn't get copy pasted.
It does.
Oh.
It does. So it's part of the streams.
Yeah.
Right. So what happens is now the recording is in streams.
Yeah.
And so the chat window is there, so they'll be able to see it.
But they can click links in stream. Oh,
I don't know that they can click links, but they can
see them.
They can see them. Copy and paste.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So shout out to Whit. Thanks for a lot of great questions and everyone. But shout out to you, Whit.
Yes.
Yeah, I think just my final
3
words.
3 words.
You can give your final 3 words.
Yeah, after this.
Please promote our new service fabric forum while we work on automatic.
So we can make an announcement of that in
Azure Advisors,
Service Fabric as well.
Yeah,
the Azure Advisors.
Yeah, we should do that.
Hey, Whit, that's a great question. So one of the things we've learned, over the last couple of weeks is people really want a little bit more visibility into what we're working on.
Yes.
There was this issue that came up that sort of blew up a little bit on the issues page with a lot of people chiming in saying they want some more visibility and transparency into what our team is actually working on, what we're focusing on. And so Nandini and I are trying to solve that a little bit right now. I think one thing is we'll do a better job of using Azure updates to formalize some of the stuff that we're working on so you guys can see the content in there, which I think Azure wants us to sort of centralize on in terms of seeing, going to one place to see what the services are working on or whatever. The second is we will try to do a better job posting our roadmap items in the Service Fabric repo itself. So for things related to the runtime as opposed to the service, some of the stuff that's in Azure updates with maybe additional level of granularity or whatever, we'll post into the repo. And then basically what I did is, in order to answer this thread, just actually like an hour ago, I posted a response that had like a lot of the stuff from our work items for the planning we just went through. So that might be worth checking out for you in the short run, but longer term, we'll have a better system for you to get those sort of updates beyond just waiting for release notes or coming to ask us in the calls.
And for our advisors, we could do a roadmap update webcast.
Yeah, that's actually a great idea.
Yeah.
So
that'd be great.
We should look into doing that as well if you're an advisor already. Where's the link to the new form? I think Nandini posted a link above. It's like tech communities at Service Fabric. It's one of the first links that we had up there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
Is it that one? It's just kind of lists all the recent blog posts.
Yeah, that's the one.
Gotcha. Okay.
So we're also consolidating on using tech community as opposed to MSDN now because MSDN is kind of deprecated. So.
Also, I think Azure Advisors is currently on hold. They're not accepting new stuff for right now. They're like redoing something.
That's true. If you're not already in Advisors at this point, it's kind of on hold until the middle of next month. We're going through some changes, transition period.
Oh, this is interesting. So TJ checked. Look at that. That's cool.
Yeah.
So we actually do have that info. It looks like we do put what cert is being used in SFX. And so during the course of this call, TJ was able to go and check and see that he was using the right cert. There you go. That's sorted out. That's nice.
Perfect.
Quick turnaround there.
Awesome.
I hope that's not your subscription or your anything useful. Let's delete that comment.
Well, we need to get that out of there. Oh, that's too late.
Yeah.
Recording.
Yeah.
Okay.
Probably roll that good over. All right, folks. Thank you so much for your time. There you go. Yeah.
Thanks.
All right,
Thanks, everyone. Great call.
See you next month.
Thank you very much. Have a good one.
Yep.